All right, so in our last video, we made our monster walk, so he walks correctly. Now, for this next part, I went ahead and moved him. He was right here. I moved him over here so that he's closer to the patrol point, because what we want to do now is fix it so that once he gets to his destination, he doesn't just walk in place, because that looks kind of silly. So you can see him, he's walking in place. And again, I've moved him here so I don't have to wait for him to traverse the entire maze to get to the other side. So at this stage, I'm kind of glad that I made a fairly small maze. Otherwise, I'll be waiting 15 minutes for him to walk from one end of to the other. All right, so to make him do this, there's a couple of ideas that spring to mind. We could do like a ray cast to figure out, or a line cast even, anything like that to figure out what the distance is between him and his destination. Or we could probably do this a little bit simpler with a set of colliders. So let's do that. That seems like the simplest thing. And it's also fairly straightforward. So let's take our patrol point and let's add a collider to it. Doesn't really matter which one. I'm going to go with a capsule collider. And let's zoom in on that. I'll make it a little bit bigger than that. I'll give it a radius of 1 and a height of, say, 2. And that should be fine. Oops. Okay. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to add, I need to make sure this is set to is trigger, because we don't want it to be a real collider. We don't want stuff to be running into it and bouncing off of it. We want stuff to run into it. We don't want stuff to bounce off of it. If we left the is trigger unselected, it would be as though there were an invisible ball there, and that's not what we're after. All right, so let's make our fantasy monster have a collider as well, and we're going to need a rigid body to make this work. So let's go into physics, add the rigid body, and now let's add a collider. He's got a collider from the animator controller, but that's okay. We're going to add a capsule collider to him, and it's going to be ginormous like the other one was. So let's go ahead and sort of scale this down. I don't remember the numbers I plugged in before, but it's probably like 0.5. That's fine. You might even go 4. And for the height, we'll call it 0.4. And see how that looks. I'm not going for exact on this guy. It's okay if it's off, because this thing is pretty much just going to tell us if we've run into something big like our thing. We may, maybe we'll change it later, but this is for what our immediate problem is. This is going to be fine. All right. So we've got our capsule collider. We've got our collider on the other thing. And now let's add something to our script, which I should still have up over here. And I'll have it say if, no, let's do, I'm a little ahead of myself. Let's do void on trigger enter. And it's going to take as its argument a collider. This is just something you do enough times and you remember it. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that what we're running into is a respawn point. Remember, we tagged this patrol point with the respawn tag. So we're just going to make sure that that's what we've run into. So to do that, we just do if other .gameObject.tag equals, remember there's 2 because it's a comparison, respawn. Then we're going to do something. And in this case, that something is we're going to change the state of our animator. We can actually just come up here and steal this line of code right here and make one tiny change to it. We're going to change the state from 1 to 0, which will cause him to go back into an idle state. And that looks pretty good. Let's see if it works. Okay, he's going to walk. And when he gets to the end, he's going to go back into his idle state. That's perfect. He's kind of looking around at a blank wall. That's kind of weird, but the gist of it is fine. He went back to just standing there and looking around. So that's pretty good. Actually, what's he doing? He's just kind of hanging out. All right, so let's do, once he gets to that point, let's do something else. So maybe we make him go to a different waypoint. So let's give him a couple of waypoints to choose from, and we'll have him go to a random one. And that'll be the next video.